Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and we finally have it. I finally have it in my hands, guys. The USB-C to headphone jack adapter for the iPad Pro. We've all been waiting for this product for many, many years, and I finally have it to unbox and review. Okay, maybe you don't care about this thing. I don't think anyone really cares about this thing. But what we do care about is that brand new 2018 Mac Mini. I'm talking to you, Wild Avocado. I'm talking to you, Michelle. I'm talking about you, Michael. I'm talking about you, Tony Quaxton. You guys have asked me to do a before you buy on this new 2018 Mac Mini, so I will happily oblige, although I don't think too many people are interested. Maybe it will surprise me, much like the refresh of the Mac Mini did. So I always start these videos off with the design of the current product, and this one's pretty easy. It looks exactly the same as the older Mac Mini, except now it comes in a really nice space gray color. It seems that Apple is now using the space gray refreshes on the Mac line to indicate that it has a Pro status, so this is a Mac Mini that's more designed for pros. Now, although Apple didn't really change the design of the Mac Mini, they have made some changes to the back of the device. So on the back of the device now, you're actually going to be getting 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports. So if you want to hook up 5K or 4K monitors, you can do that with the Thunderbolt 3 port. If you want to hook up external GPUs to the Mac Mini, you can now do that through the Thunderbolt 3 port. Fortunately, Apple had the foresight to keep USB-A ports on it, so people aren't complaining about dongles, and they definitely have the room to fit it on the Mac Mini, so it is a smart choice. It also includes an HDMI port, which is a really smart move because a lot of people already probably have monitors that they want to hook this up to, or a lot of people like to hook up Mac Minis to their TVs to kind of use as a home media server, so having that HDMI port is really important for that type of consumer. It also has an Ethernet port, which you can actually configure up to 10 gigabit Ethernet. Not many consumers are going to take advantage of that, which this video is kind of geared towards, but if you have a really fast internet connection, you could have that, or if you want to run this as a server, having that 10 gigabit Ethernet, if you have the data speed available, is a really nice thing to have. And of course, it has that good old-fashioned headphone jack, so you won't be needing this guy. Didn't we throw this guy away already? Again, really like the wide variety and selection of ports that Apple decided to include in the 2018 Mac Mini. It has a lot of options for expandability with the 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports, and it does keep a lot of those legacy ports. It has a lot of room for connectivity, which you definitely need in a desktop computer. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the configurations in this Mac Mini. That also changed as well. So Apple is going to start you off at a $799 price point for this Mac Mini, and that $799 configuration is going to include a 3.6 gigahertz quad-core i3 processor with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and Intel Graphics 630, and 128 gigabyte solid-state storage. Now, this thing starts at $799, which is a pretty low price, but you can spec this Mac Mini out. For the Max configuration, you can get a 3.2 gigahertz 6-core i7 processor with 64 gigabytes of RAM and a 2 terabyte solid-state drive with a 10 gigabit Ethernet port for the low price of $4,199. Apple is clearly aiming this Mac Mini not at people who are looking for their first Mac, but people who are in the pro market, people who are in the prosumer market who want to work on a Mac, who might have other monitors that they prefer instead of an iMac, so there's definitely room to configure this thing up. Though this Mac Mini really doesn't have configurations that you can buy. It's not like you can buy one with an updated graphics card. It's kind of just choosing the right processor, the right RAM, and the right amount of storage. So let me go over some of the configurations and what kind of consumer should buy those. So if we're starting off with the Core i3 version of this processor, this is someone who wants it for lighter tasks. If you want a Mac desktop and you want to hook it up to your own monitor, kind of the old strategy of you want a Mac at the cheapest price point possible, you already have a monitor, you already have a keyboard and mouse, and you just want the most inexpensive Mac you can buy, and you're not planning on doing any sort of pro applications on this. You're just going to be browsing the web, doing some email, browsing photos, maybe some light photo editing, some light video editing. And the Core i3 processors don't look to be too bad in this, although they don't support anything like Turbo Boost. That might affect you down the line if you are going to be using this thing for video editing. Having the ability to ramp up those processors and overclock them can really speed up rendering times. Buying the Core i3 model, at least in the base configuration on Apple's website, only comes with 128 gigabytes of solid-state storage. Although you can add external drives for later to expand that storage, I would really recommend at least bumping this up to 2 256 gigabytes of storage. Again, maybe 128 is enough for you if you're using this as a home computer, although for a desktop home computer, that does seem really low, but maybe you want the cheapest Mac possible. Maybe you're just gonna buy cheap external storage and figure all that out later. But again, an honest recommendation for me, at least, to store some decent amount of programs on it, maybe download a couple videos, have some files and some photos, I would at least recommend going the 256 gigabyte route. You can't upgrade the internal storage on this Mac Mini, so any of the recommendations I'm making from here on out, just get as much storage as you can afford or as much as you think will be comfortable for your use case. Another use case for this cheaper i3 model is maybe if you're using it as a home media server. If you're hooking it up to a TV to watch videos, play music, using it as a home server, that i3 processor should be more than enough. Okay, so now you're bumping the processor up to the Core i5. For this one, this is gonna be for those prosumer people who wanna do some video editing, you wanna do photo editing, want to run some Adobe programs, anything like that. It is a 6-core i5 processor, which is actually more powerful than the processor I use in my current iMac to edit 4K videos. This is only a Core i5 3.4 gigahertz processor. Again, that's a 6-core processor running at 3 gigahertz, and you can turbo boost that up as well. So this is really going to help people who want a Mac that is cheaper, but you can actually do some production level stuff on it. You can do video editing, photo editing, music production. It is a really good computer for those needs, except take into account that this Mac Mini does not have a dedicated graphics card. It only has an internal graphics card. So if you want to do any gaming on this, I know Macs and gaming don't really make much sense. You aren't going to be playing really high caliber games on it. You can also configure this with that Core i7 model, and this is really going to excel for people who are running a ton of applications who need hyper threading. That is available on the Core i7 models. If you're doing video editing, that's going to be a huge boost to you. If you're planning to use this Mac Mini for any sort of live streaming while also running other applications, that Core i7 with the 6 cores and the hyper threading, again, is going to be a nice big boost for any terms of productivity like that. Again, the Core i7 is really made for those pro level consumers who are going to be doing a lot of multitasking. They want fast rendering times. They might do a little bit of live streaming, or if you want the most powerful Mac Mini possible, getting that Core i7 model will be the way to go. Now, you can pay Apple to upgrade the RAM in this device to up to 64 gigabytes, and you'll notice I didn't mention any RAM upgrade specifications while going over this. And that is because you can replace the RAM yourself in the Mac Mini, so I really recommend not paying Apple for those RAM prices unless you are the least computer savvy person possible and you don't know how to open a computer and replace RAM. But if you're buying a Mac Mini, you probably know a little bit what you're doing with computers, and the RAM is user replaceable. Now remember, none of these Mac Mini configurations support any dedicated graphics cards. Apple doesn't offer the ability to put a dedicated graphics card in the Mac Mini, but you can expand that later through the Thunderbolt 3 connection by plugging in an external graphics card. Although it looks ridiculous, you do have the ability to add that later down the line. If you are looking for a Mac Mini, you want the lower price point, you like some of the specs inside of it, you plan on doing something with a graphics card later, you do have the option to add an external graphics card through Thunderbolt 3. Okay, let's talk about some alternatives in the Apple desktop market space. Of course, we got the regular old iMac. This is a 27-inch 5K iMac behind me, and that is a pretty good task for a prosumer pro level market. The iMac at 4K starts at $1299 and the 5K 27-inch starts at $1799, and you can upgrade these with various configurations going from i5 processors to i7 processors. They're pretty speedy, but they actually don't support the latest 6-core processors. Apple hasn't refreshed this line since the 6-core processors came out, so it looks like the Mac Mini is going to have faster processor than the iMac. It's kind of some weird alternate universe we're living in. Although the iMac does come with dedicated graphics cards, they're not the best graphics cards, but at least you get the option to have a dedicated graphics card. You can get a Radeon Pro 570, 575, or 580 in the 27-inch iMac 5K. Another benefit for going for those iMacs, even though they don't have the latest processors, is that they do come with a really nice display. In fact, if you wanted to get a similar display with the LG Apple partnership, if you're going for a 27-inch display, that's going to cost you more than the mid-level Mac Mini at $1,300 for a 27-inch Thunderbolt 3 enabled display, which has a very similar panel to the iMac 5K panel. If you don't need those 6-core processors, you want dedicated graphics card, and you want an iMac that already has the display built in, that comes with a mouse and keyboard when you buy it, the iMac 5K might be the better choice for you. Now, if you want the most powerful iMac available to you and you don't mind spending $5,000 at a minimum, you do have the iMac Pro available to purchase, although I don't think the people who are buying this Mac Mini are going to be the same people buying an iMac Pro. That is another option in Apple's desktop lineup. I don't think I really need to cover the iMac Pro. If you are in the market for an iMac Pro, I think you know who you are, and I think you're already probably purchased one, and you're probably not looking to be purchasing the Mac Mini for the sort of task that I'm covering on my channel. And believe it or not, there is one more Mac that Apple still sells that hasn't been refreshed since 2013, and that is the Mac Pro, the small desktop trash can Mac Pro. And I don't really think I need to spell it out for you guys. Do not buy this computer at today's price for $3,000. It hasn't been refreshed since 2013. Apple can't refresh the internals because they box themselves into a thermal corner. And even in early Geekbench results with this current Mac Mini, it's beating the mid-level configurations of the Mac Pro with that Core i7 processor. As a consumer, I really don't recommend going for that Mac Pro desktop. There's just really no reason to talk about it. If you want a desktop Mac Pro, unfortunately, you're still going to have to wait until 2019 when Apple said they're going to refresh it. By any chance, if you were looking at that 2013 Mac Pro as a viable alternative, I would just recommend you wait until 2019 until Apple shows us what it's doing with its Pro desktop line. So yeah, this Mac Mini update really did surprise me. I didn't expect Apple to be targeting the Pro level market as hard as it was. And it comes with that brand new T2 chip, which I already talked about in my MacBook Air video. It's going to give you secure booting, a secure enclave, and fast SSD speeds with that SSD controller. So that is another thing to consider. That's something that even the 2017 iMac does not have yet inside of it. Again, guys, this isn't a full review of the Mac Mini. I'm going to be getting one on Wednesday, so we will be doing a full review on it, but I just wanted to offer buying advice for people who are in the pre-order stages, for people who are confused about the Mac desktop lineup. Hopefully this video helped you out. I wasn't sure if people would be interested in it, but I really hoped it helped you out, and it looks like it turned out to be even longer than I thought. Who knew I could spend so much time talking about the Mac Mini? If you guys like this video, make sure you give this video a like, and if you are passionate about the Mac Mini, I want you guys sounding off in the comments, because people are passionate about that MacBook Air, people are passionate about that new iPad Pro. I haven't seen as much love for the Mac Mini, so sound off in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the Mac Mini. Are you purchasing one? Are you planning on getting one? Or is the desktop offering by Apple just disappointing to you at this point? Also, if you want to see more from my channel, including a review of that Mac Mini, make sure you're subscribed. And I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.